Today, I want to discuss the process of making clear ice. You know, that sexy ice that you put into your cocktail glass that makes everything so much better. The one product, or one of the few products that the better it is, the less you can see it. So I want to do a quick breakdown of the science, just a quick breakdown of the science, and the reason why you don't need any real special water. You don't need distilled, you don't need triple distilled, you don't need boiled, you don't need any of those things that you might think are going to make the process better. The only thing you need is the technique. And once you figure out the technique, you can do it in so many different ways. And the technique is top down or bottom up freezing. And you want to have something that has insulated sides with no top. It's going to be very difficult to do insulated sides with no bottom, because that's a whole nother process and you got to have special equipment. But we're going to stick to top down freezing. So insulated sides, front, back, side, bottom, nothing on the top. And when it freezes, the imperfections get pushed downward, further and further and further and further down. And that's what leaves you with the clear ice. It's kind of similar to if you leave a bucket outside in the winter, that little piece that you tap that floats, that piece is almost always crystal clear because it's the same process. And it's very similar to what happens in a lake. And I might start terming this clear ice lake ice, because it's the same process. Now, my art is gonna probably leave something to be desired, but so here we have a stormy winter scene in a lake. You got insulated right here from the ground. You have the air coming this way, and the water is going to freeze in this direction, leaving all the imperfections, the water bubbles, the extra minerals, all lower than that portion of what is relatively clear ice. That's the main process. That's kind of how it is in a nutshell. Cold from the top, pushing down with insulated sides, pretty much the same way you get when a lake freezes. And that's why you almost always have that beautiful crystal clear ice on a lake. That's me snowboarding down. Now that's the science. So let's get to the practical application. Lake ice, crystal clear, nature's best. Now let me head down to my deep freezer and get my little igloo cooler that's been chilling in the freezer for probably a little bit over 24 hours. I know a lot of people like to have their ice so you have a lot of water on the bottom and you don't have to break away a lot of that fuzzy regular ice that has all the imperfections. And I'm not exactly sure if that's the way that I actually think I'm going to do this process when I do it more often. I might let my water freeze all the way to the bottom and just cut away that excess part, because when you allow it to not freeze all the way to the bottom, you might be getting more clear ice if you would have just let it freeze. I know it might be a little bit easier, but you're sacrificing possibly more clear ice for that little bit of ease. And if you use the right pieces of equipment and the right technique, cutting that excess piece away is probably worth getting a few more inches of clear ice. So let me head down to the freezer and I'll be back in a minute. This is the cooler filled with ice. So you gotta let this sit. You want it to melt. You want it to actually temper, to get to a state that it won't crack and pop when you're working with it or when you're pouring liquid over it. The strange thing is, you kind of want to get the ice to ice room temperature. Not room temperature, but the temperature that the ice just naturally wants to be right at the stage of freezing. And you'll know when it gets to that way because whatever frost is on it will start to disappear and you'll actually be able to see that clear ice. So I'm gonna tip this over, pop it on my bar mat, and let it do what it do. It's probably gonna take about 3, 4, 5 minutes before it actually thaws out enough to release from the cooler. But you just let that process happen, let it happen on its own, and you'll get a better product. There we go. I mean, that was pretty quick. So I still have a pocket of water right in there. This is the clear ice. I probably could have let it freeze a little bit longer and I would have gotten probably more clear ice. And something I'm probably gonna add to my freezer when I do this, I'm gonna add a little fan in there to help circulate the air, to push it, and that'll make the imperfections sink down to the bottom lower, so you'll actually get more clear ice. But I'm gonna tap into this, let that water drain out, and that's gonna also help it temper. So I'm gonna find a spot that seems to be a place where I can use my handy dandy ice pick. There we go. And now that I have that, just that little small hole, I can actually get rid of a lot of the water in a way that's not gonna be as messy. Having some nice new rubber tip gloves make the process a little bit easier. Let's see. There we go. Kind of thirsty. I'm gonna get me a nice cold glass of water. Oh, that's nice. And that's brisk, baby. So we're just gonna sit here, let this ice block temper for a little bit before we tap into it. You wouldn't want to be too impatient at this process, at this stage, because you'll mess up your beautifully, probably 1, 2, 3 inch thick piece of clear ice. Just sit back and have some cold water. Got a piece of orange from the old fashions that I made last night. Oh, might as well fancy it up a little bit. There we go. So for cutting this block of ice up, a lot of people just use a knife and then slight tapping it with a hammer or a mallet. But I'm not gonna use a bread knife because I'm gonna leave the kitchen stuff in the kitchen, and I'm going to use a saw that I bought specifically for this. And you kind of want something with serrated edges, because when you're cutting it, you get a little bit of a bouncing motion from the serrated edges that helps to kind of vibrate the ice just a little bit to give it that perfect indication of where the lines are supposed to break. And if you use a smooth knife, you don't necessarily get that, and you're gonna have a lot more variations in your break. I have this one, which is gonna allow me to go straight and give me a nice edge to tap on, but never know. I might wanna get fancy and stick to the wood theme because I like it, and I might use this guy. Not exactly sure which one I'm gonna use, but I'm gonna stay away from the serrated bread knife, just so I don't get in trouble with the girlfriend. It's nice working with this clear ice because it doesn't melt nearly as quick, so you don't get as big of a mess as if I was dealing with regular blocks of ice. And if you were to freeze ice in a traditional way, no matter what you do to the water, you're going to get that clouded area that's in the middle because it's freezing from all sides, which is a modern miracle, the way that we can produce ice nowadays. But based on that just quick process of making the ice, it freezes all the imperfections in the center of the ice. So you're able to produce something, and actually, let me give it a fair comparison. Let me let this ice sit and sweat for just a little bit, because that's when it will be at its clearest. And these are some pretty nice pieces of ice. They're big. I made these spheres out of this cube. But as you see, this is far from clear. It's clouded in the middle. I mean, if you put this inside your cocktail glass, people are probably gonna still be impressed because it's a sphere, but it's gonna be nothing like putting a nice piece of crystal clear ice inside someone's glass. And this, no matter what type of water you're going to use, if you're just freezing in a traditional freezer without insulation in a top down or bottom up method, this is what you're gonna get. It's gonna be some variation of this. You can do certain things to make it a little bit clearer, but it's always gonna have that imperfection trapped in the middle. I mean, even the ice on the side of that is clear. I definitely should let it freeze more. Now, even this ice right here is pretty clear. So that lets me know that if I let it freeze more, I would have definitely gotten more clear ice. So I think that the thing to do is to let it freeze solid, so the ice can tell you where you need to cut off, as opposed to cutting it short and believing you're gonna save yourself a little bit of work, because you're gonna lose some clear ice. This stuff, I'm probably gonna use it today when I mix up a drink. So we have a block here that is, I said, based on my knuckle size, I thought about 3 inches. That's pretty much what I got right there. That's gonna fit most glasses perfectly. So this is a nice block of ice to actually start to work with. And in my cooler, looks like there were some little dividing lines right here. So I have little grooves, and I'm actually just gonna cut it on those grooves. Look at that. Got a perfect cut, but pretty damn good. Now I'm going to give it a try with the other saw because I don't know which saw is actually going to work better. Let's try the hammer on my ice pick. So I definitely think I like this saw better because it's a straight tap. But starting the saw and then using your ice picks, that worked well also. Here we go. Got 3 nice solid blocks of ice. And I'm gonna pull out this block. It's as tempered as it's probably gonna get. And this is the difference. That's the difference. I can see my hand, I can see the glove. This you lose me when I put it up to my face. This I still see you. Look at that. That's beautiful. Now you got a lot of different ways that you can segment it off. Use the ice pick, the fork, regular, or you can saw it again. So let's saw some chunks. Oh, saw that split pretty much right when I started to saw. That let me know that it wanted to split right then and there. Let's try. I mean, using the fork is probably the best. Maybe not, because you actually chip away at it a little too much and it's not as smooth. So maybe that is actually better. There we go. Some beautiful crystal clear ice. You can do a lot of different things with it. Shape it up the way you want. It's gonna be harder to come up with a sphere because I didn't start with the really cube piece. Kind of started with more of a rectangle piece. So just a couple of minutes. And you got this. I'd be happy to put this in any glass, any cocktail that I made. It's clear, you can see through it. Here you go. Simple technique, top down freezing. All you need is something cheap like a small igloo cooler, a place big enough to freeze it in, a few hand tools, and the desire to actually just want to do something cool. And there you go. You got crystal clear ice that makes any drink better, makes any cocktail look a little bit more sophisticated. It melts slower, so you can actually sip and savor your drinks as opposed to worrying about the ice in it ruining the drink. So there you go. That's a quick tutorial about how to make pond ice. Crystal clear ice, top down freezing, insulated on all sides except the top. The imperfections, all of those things sink to the bottom, leaving you something crystal clear, kind of like an icicle or pond ice. Now this ice in here, this cloudy stuff, I'm gonna drink it, but it's hard to go back when you can make that.